You're not crazy. This is a message that you need to hear. You're not crazy. You might think that you are. You might feel like you are. But it is not the case. Trust me, I know exactly what it feels like. To feel like you're going crazy. To feel like you're going mad. And in the times that we're living in at the moment, it is a very, very natural occurrence. But sometimes we need to hear these things, whether it's from a random YouTube video, from a friend that understands, anyone, just to remind ourselves that we're not actually going crazy. One of my favorite quotes of all time by an Indian sage or master, Jiddu Krishnamurti, is, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." It's a very, very powerful quote indeed. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And so we need to remind ourselves that we are not living in normal times by any means. In fact, for me personally, I feel like, or I think like, particularly since 2020, it's as though someone spiked the collective Kool-Aid. And since 2020, things have just been getting progressively weirder and weirder and stranger and stranger. To the point where right now, why I'm making this video is things are just getting so surreal. And, that starts with globally, particularly what's going on politically. We've got these world leaders that are acting like infants. They're all connected to, a bunch of psychopathic billionaires. They have nothing to answer for. They just seem to be powerful enough to do whatever they want and to not have to answer to any obligations. And it seems like even when there is mounting evidence that they are corrupt or they've been guilty of crimes, it seems like it's enough just to say, no, I didn't. And that is unfortunately the way that things have gotten, that we're living in such an age of untruth, with the overwhelm of information and not knowing what is real anymore and not knowing what is true, that it's becoming increasingly difficult to know what is real and what is true. And so there's this mass confusion going on, which seems to be shifting even into mass hysteria. And I'm just noticing more and more that this frenzy, this collective hysteria and frenzy is building because we're all being overwhelmed by so much information. Not just being overwhelmed by so much information, but information that we can't make sense of, that we don't know whether is true. And so for me personally, what I'm feeling the call to, as you can see, already sitting out here in beautiful nature, is to further and further start to, cut off from all the noise, to remove myself further and further from all the noise. Because I've been observing for some time now that it's just not serving me. It's not helping at all. It's not doing me any favors. And if anything, it's adding to further confusion. It's adding to further anxiety. And it's adding to further mental chaos. And I think like everyone, I have some challenges around screen time and phone use. And it's funny because it's as though I'm aware when I'm distracting myself and I'm using my phone or using social media to check out, to try not to face the uncomfortable feelings that come up for us all. But this awareness grows stronger and stronger to the point where even though I'm doing it, it's becoming increasingly harder and harder to actually do it. That voice is growing stronger as I do it, as I have these habits, sitting there just doom scrolling. It's like, what are you actually doing? What are you actually doing? This is like the voice in my head when that's happening. What are you actually doing? And the awareness of just using this to avoid not wanting to feel whatever it is I need to feel is becoming overwhelming. And also the voice that's becoming increasingly aware that I'm not actually gaining or positively growing from this content and this media that I'm consuming. It is not serving my highest good. And so there's this further calling and this further intuition right now. And I think that this is really the next step, is tune in, turn off, and drop out. A little bit of a twist on that classic phrase from the 60s by Timothy Leary during the LSD revolution. I really think that the next revolution, the revolution that needs to happen right now, is to tune in, turn off, and drop out. And it's not about taking drugs. It's not about taking LSD. It's actually about tuning out of the noise, of coming back to the earth, of coming back to nature. Everyone is so scattered at the moment. And as I said before, this sense that's been increasingly growing for me, like someone spiked the Kool-Aid collectively. I'm just noticing more and more when I go out, when I go to the shops, when I go out to public events, that there's this increased sense of stress and anxiety that I can feel coming from people. Even on the roads, people are driving aggressively. They're in a rush all the time. In the supermarkets, it's just like something feels kind of off. And for me, it's become increasingly so that something just feels off. And of course, I can't accurately 100% place it. I can't say what is fully responsible. But I have my suspicion that for sure our constant connection and constantly being plugged in to these algorithms and to this avalanche and assault of media and social media and content, it's messing with our heads. It is really messing with our heads. And I think that so many people are so deeply in it that they've lost a sense or a realization or awareness that it is actually having such an effect. Someone spoke to me recently, or I read recently, this analogy, which I don't think is actually biologically correct, but it's a good analogy. If you put a frog in really hot water and it jumps straight out, but you put a frog in room temperature water and slowly heat it up, and it's not actually aware of the water heating up in time for it to escape. And similarly so, I feel like this insidious progression of our reliance of being so plugged into these algorithms and so connected to the online world all the time is really starting to mess with our heads and have significant impacts on our nervous system regulation, on our dopamine, that we kind of haven't realized how it's crept up on us and the massive impact that it is having. And it's interesting because when I take myself away, as I am now, and I come back to nature, things are very different. A lot of the chaos dims away. A lot of the chaos falls away. And I find myself wondering, like when we take away the so-called global chaos that we're all feeding into around the world, when we take away from even this online persona and presence and personality that we've created online with interacting with everyone, when we take away all this, when we just remove that and we go offline, like what remains? Who am I? Who are you offline, disconnected from all the noise and all the online reach? I think it's a really important question. And I find that the more that I do that, the more that I just come back to simple ways, being offline, connecting with the earth, connecting with people. Things don't seem so crazy. Things don't seem so bad. Interestingly, earth is actually an anagram. I think it's anagram. Correct me if I'm wrong. Of heart. So the same letters rearranged, earth is heart. And I think that's a really key point here. Coming back to the earth, coming back to the heart, remembering who we are and what we are when we disconnect from the noise, from the technology, from all the ideas. Let's come back. Let's come back to earth. Let's come back to the heart. Let's come back to what's real. Let's come back to what's important. And as I said before, this revolution that needs to happen, of coming or moving away from this artificial way of living, I think is really the next revolution, the next powerful revolution coming. And I implore you, as I'm imploring myself, I just recently bought a dumb phone, old school Nokia phone with actual touch buttons that I had to press. It's been quite hilarious trying to work it recently. To disconnect is to start to separate myself more from all the noise and all the chaos, particularly through the online world and the media, that is not positively influencing me, that is not helping me or assisting me in any way. And so these steps that we make of doing things like this, of spending more time in nature, of connecting with local community, connecting with other people, is so important, because once again, I think it's a really strange time, and the way that we're living is starting to really affect us and do funny things. I'm even noticing that in my interactions with people, it's actually becoming harder and harder, increasingly harder to have genuine, really present conversations with people and to really connect with people. I have certain people in my life that I can still very much deeply connect with and be very present with. But I'm noticing there's a lot of people who, they seem to be struggling to be present. They seem to be struggling to make eye contact. And it's like there's this scatteredness and this lack of presence. And it's almost like it's becoming harder and harder for people to actually connect on a human level, eye to eye, sitting opposite each other, being present. I've had some bizarre interactions recently, even through texts and through online messaging, with people acting very avoidant and very strange. And I think that this way of coming back to real connection, to real human connection, honest eye to eye talk, calling someone up on the telephone, saying hello. Simple, key things, but so vital. So I just wanted to share that with you guys today. It's a really important message that is coming through really strongly for me at the moment. And I think this is one of the most important things that is going on right now. And it's going to be a vital and important thing moving forward. See you next time.